Good morning. Welcome back to Running Commentary. We're not going to do a full set review for Dragonstorm because, well, we've kind of missed the boat on that. But we have a Friday slot free because I still haven't decided what the next First Time Friday game is. So we'll work our way through all the rares and mythics of the set and give some thoughts on where they make sense in Commander, power levels, this sort of nonsense. Let's get this movement thing moving. And got some stats there. And that was at 11:42. Okay, let's get into this. Tarkir, Dragonstorm, Rares and Mythics, Commander-based set review. First up, we have Betor, Ancestor's Voice. 2 white, black, green. It's a legendary creature spirit dragon. It is a 3/5 with flying and lifelink. At the beginning of your end step, put a number of +1/+1 counters on up to one other target creature you control equal to the amount of life you've gained this turn. Return up to one target creature with mana value less than or equal to the amount of life you lost this turn from your graveyard to the battlefield. So, Abzan is well established as a powerful life shenanigans color combination, and here we finally have a commander that really plays into it. Him having lifelink means that you can fairly reliably get the first half off of his end step ability, distributing a pile of +1/+1 counters. Importantly, you can't put them on him because otherwise you would be able to scale him very rapidly, but there are plenty of ways in this color combination to do counter manipulation and redirect them onto him anyway. The reanimate based on life loss is much harder to make work based on what he offers, and requires some very specific deck building planning. So you're looking for, we want tech, we want AX life. I should have set some color combinations. Oh yeah, that's an ideal sort of card. So something like the Access Maze from Duskmourn, where once each turn you may cast a spell from your hand by paying life instead of its mana value. Perfect. That's exactly the sort of thing that Betor really wants to see in the deck. Something where you can reliably pay a decent chunk of life so that you can keep recurring value out of your graveyard, whilst his first half of his ability keeps growing your team. Really interesting commander, has the potential to be incredibly powerful, but requires some very careful deck building planning to make him actually work out. Onwards. Hello. There we go. Interesting. Elsha, Threefold Master. Blue, red, white for a legendary creature Jin Monk. She is a 1/1 with trample. Woo! 1/1s with trample. Everyone's favorite combination stat line. But fortunately for her, them? Identity unclear. Fortunately for them, they have Prowess, which is whenever you cast a non-creature spell, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn. And whenever Elsha deals combat damage to a player, create that many 1/1 white monk creature tokens with Prowess. So, Jeskai Voltron comes with trample built in, which is quite helpful. Needs to deal combat damage to players to get additional value, but that value is quite powerful in terms of going wide or building up defenses. The fact that you can, even if you're playing a very equipment based and don't have the mana to equip all your equipments, you can still get prowess triggers to pump Elsha just by casting them, means that your aggression is never really impeded. And Jeskai is probably the most powerful equipment color combination. This reminds... So, I run Krenko Tin Street Kingpin as a Voltron commander, based on the fact that you can keep churning out piles of defensive creatures so that you don't have to worry about being attacked back. Elsha does exactly the same thing, but in a much more powerful color combination, at the downside of a weaker built-in pump effect, and requiring you to hit a player instead of just attacking. But Krenko, I have found very powerful when it gets going, and Elsha I think will be even more so because you have so much better support across 3 colors. Elsha, I think, is going to join a long and exalted line of commanders that your opponent plays and you go, yeah, we're not letting that stay on the battlefield. Eshki, Teamer's Roar. Green, blue, red for a legendary creature human warrior. Eshki is a 2/2 that says whenever you cast a creature spell, put a +1/+1 counter on Eshki. That's already pretty great. If that spell's power is 4 or greater, draw a card. Brilliant. You play big spells, you get card draws for more big spells to play them. If that spell's power is 6 or greater, Eshki deals damage equal to Eshki's power to each opponent. Ridiculous. So, you play Eshki. Next turn, you play... I can't think what his name is. The Hammer Scuttle, the 3-mana 6/6 dinosaur. You immediately put a counter on her, draw a card, deal 3 damage to each opponent. Next turn, you play some 5-mana 6/6. Great. You now put a counter on her, draw a card, deal 4 damage to each opponent. Eshki is absolutely terrifying. Like, Teamer, big stompy creature. Like, I will admit I'm biased. When I was looking through the set, this was the closest I came to wanting to build a deck around. She is insanely powerful. There are so many random cheap creatures that have giant stats with random downsides, but why do you care about the downsides if you're just killing your opponents? Phyrexian Dreadnought. 1 mana, 12/12 trample. If this is the first creature you cast after playing Eshki, this is 1 mana, put a +1/+1 counter on a creature, draw a card, deal 3 damage to each opponent. For 1 mana, that Eshki is bonkers. The more I talk about it, the more that I can think that I want to build her, but I am currently in a very weird place with my commander decks, and I need to be very careful about committing to building more decks right now. What the? That? How short was this lo-fi? Oh. Give me a moment. I thought that was a 3-hour lo-fi, not a 30-minute lo-fi. I will reset that and find something longer to... How on earth am I meant to tell if it's streamable, dear commentary wife? Come on, adverts, please go away. Right. We have new Muzak, We have Eshki the Insanely Powerful. Onwards. Bellathar the Steadfast. Where we've just taken Doran the Siege Tower and power crept it up for a modern level of magic. Bellathar, 1 white, black, green for a legendary creature human warrior. Bellathar is a 0/5, but each creature you control assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. Creatures you control can attack as though they didn't have defender, and 3 and tap, sacrifice another creature, draw cards equal to the sacrificed creature's toughness, then discard cards equal to its power. That music feels loud. Let me down a little bit. So, you want things with large toughnesses so that you can attack with them. We take away the downside of those things often having defender, and we also build in a huge card advantage system. Well, if you liked playing Doran, congratulations, your commander has just been upgraded. There's not really a huge amount to say about this. It's just the most powerful Abzan Toughness Matters commander we've seen by an enormous margin. It takes all of the advantages you get from the Arcady Saboth start in Bant in terms of getting card advantage, and just sticks it in the better combination for big butts matters. Bellathar isn't someone you need to be afraid of the moment they come down, but you do need to keep an eye on just how many creatures they're playing and how many cards they're drawing. Otis, Sibsig Champion. Black, green, blue for a 3/3 legendary zombie warrior. Once during each of your turns, you may cast a creature spell from your graveyard by exiling 3 other cards from your graveyard in addition to paying its other costs. Whenever 1 or more creatures you control enter, if 1 or more of them entered from a graveyard or was cast from a graveyard, put 2 +1/+1 counters on Otis. So, each turn you can escape something from your graveyard for exiling 3 cards from your graveyard, and Otis just keeps getting bigger and bigger. Probably going to end up being with someone finding some sort of combo nonsense for it. But what do we think? What have we got going on here? I am twitchy about this card because I really dislike paying the cost of exiling cards from my graveyard, because I am a sucker for having as much value available as I can. That said, this is very powerful, and the biggest downside of him is he's going to grow big pretty quickly, which turns him into a significant threat to the table in terms of not wanting to take piles of commander damage, and he has no protection at all whatsoever. If you're planning on running this, oh, that's what you want. You want, what are they called? Why can't I think of the name of the card? You want all of the Grief Scam style card. It's not dead? Yes. So you want cards like Not Dead After All, where when this dies, it returns to the battlefield, because if it returns to the battlefield from the graveyard, it will also get the +1/+1 counters. That's quite neat. So, you need to be prepared to deal with exile effects, but otherwise, You just make sure you're holding up 1 black mana all the time, and anyone trying to destroy your commander just brings him back more powerful than before. I mean, probably not, because he will lose all the counters previously accumulated, but the point remains. Galbra. No, that didn't have a way to reanimate it. Onwards! Neriv, Crackling Vanguard. 2 red, white, black, legendary spirit dragon, flying, death touch, 4/4. When it enters, create 2 1/1 red goblin creature tokens, and when it attacks, exile a number of cards from the top of your library equal to the number of differently named tokens you control. During any turn you attack with the commander, you may play those cards. So, Mardu tokens specifically wants you to have differently named tokens, so you can't just go for a single kindred swarming. You also probably want to be careful not to have too many tokens, or you may just deck yourself. But whenever you attack, you get access to every card you have previously exiled with Neriv. Important to note, the way it's worded is that Neriv cares about attacking with your commander. So if Neriv is in your 99, you can still attack with Neriv, exile cards, and those cards are connected to your commander, not to Neriv. So if your commander dies and comes... So if someone board wipes, your commander's dead and Neriv's dead, replaying your commander and attacking with it will give you access to all the cards you previously had exiled with Neriv. Powerful card advantage in Mardu if you have token variety in your deck. Important to note, it isn't the number of tokens, just the number of differently named tokens. So 2 goblins gives you 1 card, 1 goblin, 1 human, 1 angel gives you 3 cards. Also, just a 4/4 flying death touch is pretty unpleasant, so ought to be able to attack pretty freely on most board states. Shiko and Narset unified. 1 blue, red, white. Legendary creature, human spirit dragon. It's a 4/4 with flying and vigilance. And has flurry. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, copy that spell if it targets a permanent or player. You may choose new targets for the copy. If you don't copy a spell this way, draw a card. So, first spell you cast, nothing happens. Your second spell, if it targets something, you can copy it. If you don't want to copy it, you get to draw a card. Or, if it doesn't target something, then you can't copy it, so you draw a card. So, 4 mana, 4/4 flying vigilance, and your second spell each turn draws you a card, unless it targets something, in which case you may, if you wish, have it copy. Wait. Oh no, sorry, I'm misreading that. So if it targets something, you have to copy it. So she's a real sequence. If you like meticulously planning out your turns, Shiko and Narset Unified is the card for you, because you have. Also, this works each turn, so you can cast spells during your opponent's turns to do stuff. Yeah, this is a really interesting. They require so much planning to get the maximum value out of this, depending on if you want to copy spells or draw cards. Good job, Jeskai. Yeah, some real intellectual nonsense you've got going on there. Teval, the Balanced Scale. 1 black, green, blue for a 4/4 legendary spirit dragon. Whenever Teval attacks, mill 3 cards. then you may return a land card from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. And whenever one or more cards leave your graveyard, create a 2/2 black zombie druid creature token. So, Sultai landfall, self-mill, zombie spamming. Wizards have over previous sets really been pushing the cards leaving graveyards, so so if you're the sort of person that likes Insidious Roots, then here we go, we have the commander ideally designed for it. Although Cabal returns lands, whereas Insidious Roots only triggers for creatures, but you get the idea. You build a deck that just fills your graveyard and then keeps pulling things back out of it, and just accumulating piles of value from an assortment of random. Urani of the Unwritten. 4 green, blue, red for a legendary creature, Spirit Dragon. It's a 7/7 flying trample. Whenever it enters or attacks, look at the top 8 cards of your library. You may put a dragon creature card from among them onto the battlefield. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So, we have a bad Gishath for dragons. Gishath, for those who do not remember, oh, too many H's, is a 7/6 Vigilance Trample Haste. When it deals combat damage to a player, reveal that many cards from the top and put any number of dinosaurs. So, pros and cons. Pros, flying and trample means that it's much easier to get through. This triggers when it enters or attacks, not when you deal combat damage to a player, which makes it much easier to trigger. This looks at 8 cards instead of the maximum 7 Gishath gives, but the downside is you only get 1, not any number. But the upside is you get access to the entire world of dragons instead of the much smaller world of dinosaurs. If you want to play dragons, but don't like playing Mirim and just crushing everyone, this is your new commander. If you like Team of Dragons. If you like Team of Dragons and want to do real powerhouse nonsense, then I would probably suggest stick with Mirim. It's way stronger. But if you want to go, look at all my cool dragons without everyone feeling like there is no hope in the game and it's just over, I would switch. Also, I like the art on this guy. Don't know, just the vibes of the Spirit Dragon being this sort of shell around a ball of energy is neat? I don't know. Just something appeals to me about it, but yeah. Play big dragon, get more dragon. Zergo, Storm Render. Red, white, black for a legendary Orc Warrior. He is a 3/3 with Mobilize 1. Whenever this creature attacks, create a tapped and attacking 1/1 Red Warrior creature token, sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. Whenever a creature token you control leaves the battlefield, draw a card if it was attacking, otherwise each opponent loses 1 life. So, you make a pile of... Again, we have a very Mardu tokens style build. You just spam the board with 1/1s, fling them all out, and your opponents have to make choices about, do they block and let you fill your hand up, or do they let them live, and then when they board wipe later, lose a pile of life to it. Yes, Zergo's 1/1 will die, but most tokens you're making, hopefully, you want to keep around to build out a huge board state. Important to note that the draw a card is not optional, so if you are being very efficient and attacking with you may find yourself with far too many cards in hand, I would recommend packing some no maximum hand size style effects to keep your cards where you want them. Interesting design, fun build around. Mardu Aristocrats have a new potential commander, fun in Mardu tokens either in the 99 or as the commander. Nothing extraordinary or overwhelming, but a powerful player in the right deck. Right. Onwards into the commander deck, main deck cards instead of the face commanders. Inox Strike Leader. 1 and a white for a 2/2 dog warrior. Whenever you attack with this creature and or your commander, for each opponent create a 1/1 red goblin creature token that's tapped and attacking that player. And you can sacrifice this to have creature tokens you control gain indestructible until end of turn. So, only protects your creature tokens, but can make tokens when either this or your commander is attacking, and makes one for each opponent. I originally misread this card and thought if this and your commander attacked you would get 2 red goblins for each player, but that is not how this works, unfortunately. But still, a 2-mana 2/2 that, whenever it attacks, makes a 1/1 for each opponent is a lot of value for the amount of mana you're investing in it. If you want to get down early and aggressively, this is a pretty reasonable card to consider. Onwards. Aligned Heart. 2 and a white for an enchantment. With Flurry. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, put a rally counter on this enchantment, then create a 1/1 white monk creature token with prowess for each rally counter on it. So this says it costs 3 mana, it really doesn't. What you want to do is have a turn where you can play this and then cast a second spell, so that you're immediately at least getting something out of it. And then, really you want to find ways to manipulate or increase the counters on this, because if you're just incrementing it by 1 every turn, yes, you're slowly building up an army, but that's going to take a while. If you can proliferate up the counters on this and then trigger the flurry, you can rapidly produce a very large prowessing army, which is a pretty effective way to end the game. Requires very specific deck planning and building, but has the potential to be powerful. If someone plays this, then either they haven't really understood how to use the card effectively, or they're about to do something really degenerate. You will have to make a decision which. If they're playing it fairly, this is not really a threat, it just slowly produces shunt blockers. If they're playing it unfairly, this produces a game-ending army very quickly. Iron Will Forger. 3 and a white for a 3/3 Orc Artificer. It has Lieutenant. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you control your commander, target non-legendary creature you control gains Myriad until end of turn. So, this only does things if you have your commander out, and then when cool, it can target itself. If you can set up multiple combat phases, this has the potential to get very, very silly. So Myriad is when the Myriad creature attacks, for each opponent other than the one that it's attacking, you make a copy of it attacking that player. Oh no, you exile them at end of combat. For some reason I thought Myriad went to end of turn. Okay, that makes it slightly worse for doing infinite combat shenanigans, but just have your commander have this every turn, make multiple copies of the best and most powerful thing you have on the battlefield. Interesting in very aggressive decks, interesting in Blink and ETB style decks. Targeting non-legendary creatures, important for the myriad, but reduces the potential value depending on how many good non-legends you have available for it to target. Just do a deck count of your non-legendary creatures before you put this into the deck. Protector of the Wastes. 4 white for a 5/5 dragon. It has flying. And when this creature enters or becomes monstrous, sell up to 2 target artifacts and or enchantments controlled by different players. And you can pay 4 and a white to have monstrosity 3. If it isn't monstrous, put 3 counters on it and it becomes monstrous. So 6 mana 5/5 enters, exile your problem and your problem, and then spend 5 mana to turn it into an 8/8 flyer and get rid of your problem and your problem. Nothing extraordinarily exciting, just another in a long line of big splashy, high-costed, high-value utility cards. Great in Blink, nice in that it gives you a second bite at the apple even if you can't flicker it. It's just fine. Personally, I prefer my artifact and enchantment removal to be much lower costed, but if you like big effects, then go ahead. Reunion of the House. 5 white for a sorcery. Return any number of target creature cards with total power 10 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Exile Reunion of the House. I like the idea, I like the design, I like the flavor, but just play Rise of the Dark Realms. Unless you're in mono white, in which case, go ahead, I guess. But this feels what's Avernus the one I'm thinking of? Send from Avernus, that's the one. But honestly, you're probably better off just playing Ascend from Avernus. Unless you're in some sort of very specific combo deck or have built your deck to take advantage of having effectively 0 power in your graveyard. If you play Nethroi, then congratulations, here's a second copy of Nethroi that sits inside your deck, but that's about it, really. This is just not the best rate going for the effect that it's giving. If it costs less, it would be great. But as it is, it's just a little too restrictive compared to the other options available for mass reanimation. Tempest Technique. 3 and a white. For an enchantment aura, it has Storm. Enchant creature you control. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1 for each enchantment you control. So, you play this, something gets +1/+1 for each enchantment you control. You play something else, then play this. You now have 2 of them, which each count each other for the pump effect. Storm continues to be a really stupid mechanic that Wizards really haven't worked out what they're doing with. If you can get Storm to 4 or 5 before you cast this, then whatever, either you put these on a pile of different things and you've built your own overrun, or you put them all on one thing and you have something truly colossal to smack with. It requires you to be able to produce a significant storm count and still have the mana left over to cast this, but if you can, it is terrifying. Also, important reminder, it's for each enchantment you control, not just each Tempest technique. So, even if you can't Storm, but you have a lot of enchantments, you can just play this to get something big. Will of the Mardu. 2 and a white for an instant. Choose one. If you control a commander, as you cast this, you may choose both instead. Create a number of 1/1 Red Warrior creature tokens equal to the number of creatures target player controls. Or deal damage to target creature equal to the number of creatures you control. Standard rules for magic cards are you do everything in order. So if you are getting both modes, you will get your pile of extra 1/1s before you deal the damage, and the damage will include the newly made 1/1s. Important to note, the 1/1s are based on target player, so if someone has a bigger board than you, you can make a 1/1 for all of their creatures. You're not restricted to just doubling up your board state. If you like going wide and having a basically unconditional removal spell, then here you go. I'm going to pause for just a moment because I need to grab a drink. The talking is making my throat worse than I thought it would. I will be back in just a second. Okay. Good, that does remember how far I've already gone. Start slower for a bit and see where we get to. Onwards. Adaptive Training Post. 2 and a blue for an artifact. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, if this artifact has fewer than 3 charge counters on it, put a charge counter on it. Remove 3 charge counters from this artifact. When you next cast an instant or sorcery spell this turn, copy it. You may choose new targets for the copy. So, spell, build this up, then take the counters off, copy the next spell for a big splashy effect, get more counters on it, just keep looping through and copying the effects that you really want to copy. Important to note that you can't build up above 3 charge counters on this without using some sort of shenanigans, so again, you have to think about and sequence when you're casting your big splashy spells to get the copying on them for maximum efficiency of charge counter accumulation. I don't think it's quite what I'm looking for in my Spell Slinger deck, because most of my instants and sorceries are pretty interchangeable, but if you're doing something where you are regularly casting something that is significantly better than everything else in your hand, this is an interesting look piece. Deceptive Frostkite. Blue for a dragon. It is a 1/1 with flying. You may have this creature enter as a copy of a creature you control with power 4 or greater, except it's a dragon in addition to its other types and it has flying. So, 2 mana, clone the biggest thing on your battlefield and give it flying. Pretty dope. Requires you to have a reasonable number of creatures in your deck with power 4 or greater, but that's not hard. This is Commander. Important to note that this isn't one of those clones that lets you copy legends, so you, again, pick your targets carefully. Has to be a creature you control, and honestly you probably want to make sure that you have a couple of possible copies for it, because if you have one possible clone and an opponent kills it in response, then congratulations, you spent 2 mana for a 1/1 flyer. A pretty fun and cute little dude. Like, 2 mana clones are scary, giving your biggest thing flying is scary, but there's not a huge amount to say about this. It's just a decent value piece. Onward! Diviner of Mist. 4 and a blue for a 4/5 flying dragon. Whenever this creature attacks, mill 4 cards. You may cast an instant or sorcery spell from your graveyard with mana value 4 or less without paying its mana cost. If that spell would be put into your graveyard, exile it instead. So, attack, mill 4, then pick any cheap instant or sorcery in your graveyard. Does not have to be from among the milled cards, and then exile it. Great for the trying to trigger attack, get multiple spells a turn. Great for value if you're not planning on taking further advantage of the stuff in your graveyard. Right. Play that. Right. Turn 3, cast Cultivate. Turn 4, play this. Turn 5, attack with this, exile the Cultivate, ramp further. Very decent game plan. Just a powerful value dragon if you have a reasonable number of instants and sorceries in your deck. Onward. Hammerhead Tyrant. I have so many questions about how the heck a dragon ended up with a hammerhead and what possible value that is, but that's... I look at it, it's ridiculous. Hammerhead sharks have a very specific evolutionary function for the whole hammerhead thing. Apparently the story explains it. I have not yet got round to reading the story. Anyway, Hammerhead Tyrant. 4 blue for a 6/6 dragon with flying. Whenever you cast a spell, return up to 1 target non-land permanent an opponent controls with mana value less than or equal to that spell's mana value to its owner's hand. So, you play this, you cast a 1-drop, you bounce something that mana value 1 or less, non-land. You cast, after the turn after this, you cast an 8-drop, you bounce something mana value 8 or less to its owner's hand. If you like doing massive bouncings, then hooray hooray, we have Hullbreaker Horror Mark II. Much weaker because it requires mana value less than the spell you're casting, whereas Hullbreaker is any value, but still, it's a pretty absurd effect. Enjoy if you like being tempo-y and or controlling. Onwards! Transcendent Dragon. 4 blue for a 4/3 dragon with flash, flying, and when this creature enters, if you cast it, counter target spell. If that spell is countered this way, exile it instead of putting it into its owner's graveyard, then you may cast it without paying its mana cost. So, 6 mana flash dragon that steals an opponent's spell and lets you cast it instead. And importantly, the way it's set up is you get to cast it, not just change the target, so it automatically will trigger your flurry effects with just the dragon and whatever it cast. Also, this art is dope. But yeah, 6 mana Spelljack. It's Spelljack that comes with a 4/3 flying body. What do you not want? Card's great. Onwards. Voracious Bibliophile. 3 and a blue for a 3/3 dragon with flying and vigilance. And whenever you cast a spell with 1 or more targets, draw that many cards. I cast Lightning Bolt. I draw a card. I cast, can't think of something that has multiple targets now. Forked Bolt. Deal 1 damage to each of 2 targets. Draw 2 cards. Cast a counterspell. Like, the spell has to have a target, not a permanent or player target. So, draw a card to all your counterspells. Ridiculous. If you like playing controlling, hello there. Here is your new best friend. Will of the Teamer. Five and a blue for a sorcery. If you control a commander as you cast a spell, you may choose both modes. Create a token that's a copy of target permanent. Doesn't have to be yours, just any permanent. It's a 4/4 dragon creature with flying in addition to its other types. Then target player draws cards equal to the greatest mana value among permanents you control. So, either make a 4/4 dragon copy of the best permanent on the battlefield, or draw a pile of cards, or if you have your commander, do both. That's pretty absurd. I had when I first looked at this, I missed that it was any permanent, not just yours, and that increases the value of it enormously. Sorcery is probably necessary for an effect this powerful. If your opponent casts this and you have a way to stop it, please do. Important to note that to create the token, they are targeting something, so blowing that up in response will get rid of that effect. Onwards. Afterlife from the Loam. The card name is clever but annoys me because it has so little relation to Life from the Loam, which is a 1 and a green land card. Anyway, Afterlife from the Loam, 5 black, black, black. It has Delve. Each card you exile from your graveyard while casting this spell pays for 1 mana. 1 generic mana. For each player, choose up to 1 target creature card in that player's graveyard. Put those cards onto the battlefield under your control. They're zombies in addition to their other types. So, triple black, reanimate from each player. Ridiculous card. It's an excellent rate if you can get Delve for at least 3. 5 mana for that effect is absolutely reasonable, and any cheaper is excellent. And if you're playing black in Commander, you can probably get some stuff into your graveyard you don't care about. Onwards. Bone Devourer. 3 and a black for a 2/2 dragon with flash and flying. This creature enters with a number of +1/+1 counters on it equal to the number of creatures that died this turn. When this creature dies, you draw X card and lose X life, where X is the number of +1/+1 counters on it. So, your board state's looking fine, you just hold up mana and pass the turn. Someone casts a board wipe, all of your stuff dies, you flash this in, it comes in huge. Someone goes, ooh, that's a problem, and kills this, you get to draw a pile of cards. You do lose a pile of life along with it, but hey, greatness at any cost, right? The biggest issue with this is you want to be in a deck. Okay, worth noting, it doesn't have to be your creatures that died, so you can just be playing a very controlling deck, hold this up, and wait for someone else to get board wiped. The biggest issue with this is that it wants you to hold up 4 mana to cast it at instant speed in a relevant turn, which is quite a lot of mana unless you're already playing at instant speed. Has the potential to be very big and powerful, has the potential to draw you a lot of cards. There's an interesting mini game in trying to decide how, when you cast it, to make it big enough to matter, but not so big that it's just going to kill you when someone kills it. Jaws of Defeat. 3 and a black for an enchantment. Whenever a creature you control enters, target opponent loses life equal to the difference between that creature's power and its toughness. If you're playing a deck with a lot of high toughness, low power creatures, then congratulations, you have a new win con. It's basically the only place that this does anything. Don't really see anything else to talk about there. If you like big butts, then I guess the biggest question is the name of this card and the flavor of liking big toughness instead of big power. Teval's Judgment. 2 and a black for an enchantment. Whenever one or more cards leave your graveyard, choose one that hasn't been chosen this turn. Draw a card, create a treasure token, create a 2/2 black zombie druid creature token. So, you can have things leave your graveyard up to 3 times to get 3 pieces of value every turn. It's just a solid value piece in the Muldrotha or Tibal or TDC or Carador sort of decks where you're just constantly playing out of your graveyard. I think really you want to be reliably bringing at least 2 things out of your graveyard each turn to have this payoff. I think if you're only triggering one of these a turn, it's perhaps a little bit weak. For example, I don't think it's quite going to make the cut in my Merrin deck, where I'm only reliably reanimating once a turn. It's not bad. It's close enough that I have considered it, but I don't think it's quite there. Of course, my Merrin deck, I've got very strict criteria about just how many creatures I want in the deck, and if I relax that, then this may well actually make it in. But deck building restrictions are what make the game interesting. Tip the scales. 2 and a black for a sorcery. Sacrifice a creature. When you do, all creatures get -X until end of turn, where X is the sacrificed creature's toughness. So, you have a fun one for careful board planning. You go, most of my creatures have 5 toughness, this one has 4, and -4/-4 to the board would be excellent right now. Cool, goodbye everything. Or you just sacrifice your biggest toughness thing and hope for a board wipe. 3 mana is a pretty reasonable rate for quite a potentially limited board wipe. Again, important to note that this doesn't care what the power of your creature is, so you can play this in just a black stompy deck, sacrifice your 7/7, give everything -7/-7. That works just as well as sacrificing a 0/7. If you're looking for cheap board wipes that let you be very selective, this is an incredibly good option if you're in a creature-heavy deck. Welcome the Dead. 3 and a black for a sorcery. Draw 2 cards, then discard a card, you lose 2 life. Create X tapped 2/2 black zombie druid creature tokens, where X is the number of cards that were put into your graveyard from your hand or library this turn. So, draw 2, discard 1, make at least 1 2/2. If you have otherwise milled or discarded, then you make more 2/2s. This weird card. Draw 2, discard a card, lose 2 life, make 1 2/2 is probably not worth it for 4 mana, given that we see draw 2, lose 2 with upside at 3 mana, draw 2, discard, and lose. So, 3 mana, we regularly see scry 2, draw 2, lose 2 life. That leaves you up 2 cards and with potentially 4 cards worth of card selection. This leaves you up 1 card and down 2 life for 4 mana. So unless you are making enough tapped zombies to make up for the difference, this is not a good card. You need to be... So it just cares about the number of cards, but you probably want to be milling 4 or 5 cards before you play this in order for it to be really worth the mana you're investing. And then it has flashback for 6, so you can do it again later, but the same thing applies. Will of the Abzan. 3 and a black for a sorcery. Choose 1. If you control a commander as you cast a spell, you may choose both instead. Any number of target opponents, each sacrifice a creature with the greatest power among creatures that player controls, and lose 3 life, and then return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. So, 4 mana reanimate, very reasonable. 4 mana, selectively politicking your opponents to hit their biggest creatures and drain them a little bit, very reasonable. 4 mana with plus have a commander, all of that is a great rate. High power sacrificing and reanimating means that this 1 card really shifts the board state for a low price of 4 mana. I think a very reasonable include in any sort of grindy or value-based deck that includes black. Within range. 3 and a black for an enchantment. When this enchantment enters, create 2 1/1 Red Warrior creature tokens. Whenever you attack, each opponent loses life equal to the number of creatures attacking them. This card I'm struggling to evaluate. Four mana for 2 1/1s isn't great. 4 mana for 2 1/1s that effectively says each creature you control gets +1/+0. It's slightly better than +1/+0 in terms of dealing the opponent, worse than +1/+0 in terms of blocks. Like, I don't know. I am not playing this in my Mardu aggressive deck. If you're going super wide with tokens, it becomes more interesting. I don't know. This card, I've gone back and forth on. I am really struggling to work out whether 4 mana is worth it for this effect. If you play with it and come to some conclusions, please do let me know, because I would love to hear how people do with this. On cards that I am not struggling to work out, Aldera Pyamorph. 3 red for a 3/3 dragon with flying. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature, then this creature deals damage equal to its power to target opponent. I have a 5-color Spellslinger deck. This card is immediately replacing Area of Flame, because it's like, yes, I pay more to get it, but it does so much more damage, and it doesn't have that give everyone life clause. This card is terrifying. If an opponent plays this, you need to kill it as fast as possible, because it takes very, very little support for it to become absolutely absurd. Even, like, just consider they play a couple of pump spells. Like, I cast Monstrous Rage on this. It gets a +1/+1 counter, I deal 4 damage to someone, and then it gets the Wicked Roll, and then I cast another spell. This card is scary. The amount, this and pump spells and means that the damage ramps up really, really fast. if you're playing some sort of aggressive storm thing. Ugh. Onwards. Gold Lust Triad. 4 and a red for a 4/3 dragon with flying. It has Myriad, so whenever it attacks, you make a copy attacking each other opponent. And when this creature deals combat damage to a player, create a treasure token. My wife is very excited to put this into her Ganax deck, because you attack, you make 2 dragons, you make 2 extra treasures. Then, all 3 dragons hit people, you make 3 extra treasures. Bonkers. So much mana. If you like playing dragons, you like having treasures, you like having more mana than you know what to do with, you like making tokens, like, this card does so many things and it does them all very well. Infantry Shield. 2 and a red for an artifact equipment. Equip cost is 2. Equipped creature has Menace and Mobilize X, where X is its power. So, whenever it attacks, you create X tapped and attacking 1/1 red warrior creature tokens, sacrifice them at the beginning of the next end step. This is a very weird card, because usually in a Voltron build you're trying to just make your commander huge and crush through with it. This goes, in addition to the commander, here's also his backup army. The downside is that the army is only aggressive. I'm really not sure how to process this. It's decent. Like, Menace is pretty nice. The fact that it doesn't give any power boost itself is kind of irritating. I'm not sure that Voltron is really where you want this. This wants to go into something where you're just playing big stompy things, and you just want some extra value. Like, let's say, not that Zergo. Like, just something like original Zergo, where you want to just keep attacking and keep attacking and keep attacking, and this just gives you more bodies to do it with. Onwards. Parapet Thrasher. 2 red for a 4/3 dragon with flying. Whenever 1 or more dragons you control deal combat damage to an opponent, choose one that hasn't been chosen this turn. So, you only get 1 of these each combat unless you have double strike effects, or some first strike, some normal strike. But your options are: destroy target artifact an opponent controls. This creature deals 4 damage to each other opponent, or exile the top card of your library you may play at this turn. All good effects, all built onto a pretty cheap body. 4 mana for a dragon is quite reasonable. If you can work out how to get more than 1 of them in a turn, then this card becomes absurd, but even without, it is a very respectable dragon. Onward. Redoubled Stormslinger. First, 2 and a red for a 3/3 Orc Wizard with first strike. Whenever this creature attacks, for each creature token you control that entered this turn, create a tapped and attacking token copy of that token. At the beginning of the next end step, sacrifice those tokens. So, for every token you made this turn, you effectively give them haste. If they already had haste, you get a new one with haste. The copies go away. A 3/3 first strike means that it can attack fairly safely for a while. There's usually going to be someone that will struggle to deal with 3/3 first strike, especially if there's a horde of other things that need dealing with. Important to note, you can do timing shenanigans with this. So if you attack with something that when it attacks makes tokens, you can have that resolve first, and then this will also give you tokens for each of those ones you made during that attack. Interesting friendo. Sacrifice at the end step, so if you've got sacrifice shenanigans during your main phases, you can still take advantage of them. Takes a little bit of planning and building around. To really maximize the value, then you really need to understand how the stack works, but potentially very powerful. Thundermane Dragon. 3 and a red for a 4/4 dragon with flying. You may look at the top card of your library at any time. You may cast creature spells with power 4 or greater from the top of your library. If you cast a creature spell this way, it gains haste until end of turn. So, if you have a deck filled with big stompy things, you can now haste out your big stompy things from the top of your deck. Fascinating. Kind of irritating to play against. Hard advantage and haste enabler in one is pretty unpleasant, but a 4/4 flyer is fine but not terrifying in its own right. This, I think, will be the threat that this presents, I think, will be underappreciated at a lot of tables if you choose to run it. Transforming Flourish. 2 and a red for an instant with Demonstrate. When you cast a spell, you may copy it. If you do, choose an opponent to also copy it. Players may choose new targets for their copies. Destroy target artifact or creature you don't control. If that opponent is destroyed this way, its controller exiles cards from the top of their library until they exile a non-land card, then they may cast that card without paying its mana cost. So, if you demonstrate it, there are 3 lots of get rid of artifact or creature and they get replaced by some new thing. Better than, more dangerous than Chaos Warp because they are guaranteed to hit something. But for 3 mana, you potentially get rid of 3 problems. This interesting card, good for politics. I mean, amazing for politics, but has a lot of risk built into it in terms of the amount of value your opponents can get out of casting stuff for free. Will of the Jeskai. Dark! That's very funny. I had not seen this art before. 3 and a red. For a sorcery, choose one. If you control a commander as you cast this spell, you may choose both instead. Each player may discard their hand and draw 5 cards. Each instant and sorcery card in your graveyard gains flashback until end of turn. The flashback cost is equal to their mana cost. So, get yourself a new hand and access to every spell in your graveyard, but also give each of your opponents the potential to reset their hands. Interesting card. If you are, I think this is going to see more play at high power tables where people are really looking to get every bit of advantage they can and to go as fast as possible. I think if you're playing in the bracket 2-3 range, you probably want to be pretty careful about this because people are going to, if you give people a chance to get 5 new cards, the game is likely to go long enough that they can take advantage of that. Onwards. Zenith Festival. X red for a sorcery. Exile the top X cards of your library. You may play them until the end of your next turn. And then Harmonize for X red. Harmonize meaning you can tap a creature to reduce the X cost by an amount equal to the power of the tapped creature. So, just get a big old pile of cards to use in your next turn. This is pretty nice. Like, you've drawn, like, you just hold on to this until you've run out of cards. you tap, like, say, half your mana, exile the top 4 cards of your library. You can mute, if you've got any you can play now, you play them immediately, then you play the rest of them next turn. Then later, you tap some random big dweeb you've got. Harmonize is, like, you tap a 6-drop, pay 2 red, exile the top 6 cards of your library, play them over the next 2 turns. Just, if you often find yourself running out of cards, this is one of the best red cards we have seen for giving you play over the next 4 turns of the game. And if you haven't managed to close out the game or find a new way to restore your hand across 4 turns and like 15 cards or however much you get, then you probably need to go and just really work on your deck construction. This card is just a really powerful value card. Arbor Adherent. 3 and a green for a 2/4 dog druid. Tap, add a mana of any colour. Or tap, add X mana of any one colour, where X is the greatest toughness among other creatures you control. So, 4 mana makes 1 mana not great. 4 mana if you've just played an 0/5, now tapped to make 5 mana, very, very good. Again, just very deck dependent. Again, important to note, cares about toughness, it does not care what the power is at all. So if you play this, turn 5, you play a 6/6, you can immediately tap this for another 6 and play something else. If you're playing big stompy things and you're in green, you probably want to consider this card. It basically doubles your mana. In the mid game, at least. If you've got other shenanigans going on where it's worth noting you only make 1 colour, not a combination of colours, so if you're in 3 or more colours, then you maybe need to be more careful about how you consider this, depending on how many multicolour spells you're playing. But in 1 or 2 colours, this is excellent as a mid-range mana piece. Become the Avalanche. 4 green, draw a card for each creature you control with power 4 or greater, then creatures you control get +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of cards in your hand. The lack of trample here is a big issue. Does give you... Have we already considered this for Azuri? I believe it's on your list for Azuri. You can check. I'm pretty sure I put it there. Draw a card for each creature you control with power 4 or greater. So, draw a pile of cards, and then make all of your big things even bigger. Unless you're already wide enough that you're going to hit through, or you're playing a lot of creatures with trample already, this is mostly just a big card draw effect, and maybe a way to clear out some of your opponent's blockers. But this is not the sort of auto kill that you want from an overrun style effect. If this gave trample, I would be incredibly excited about it. Without trample, or can only be blocked by 1 creature, or some other evasive related boost, it is more dubious to me. Still decent as just a mass card draw effect, though. Broodcaller Scourge. 5 black for a 5/7 dragon with flying. Whenever 1 or more dragons you control deal combat damage to a player, you may put a permanent card with mana value less than or equal to that damage from your hand onto the battlefield. So, you hit with just this, you can put something mana value 5 or less onto the battlefield. You hit with this and 2 other 5-power dragons, you can put a permanent with mana value less than 15 from your hand onto the battlefield. Sure. Cheat out big stompy things with your big stompy things, then your big stompy things help you cheat out more big stompy things. Go for it. If this was whenever a dragon you control deals combat damage to player, it would be much better, but because of the way it's worded, you only get to put one permanent in based on the sum of all damage dealt by dragons you control. Kind of disappointing, but also probably a pretty important and reasonable balancing act. Canopy Gargantuan. 5 green for a 7/7 flying with Ward 2 is a dragon, and at the beginning of your upkeep, put a number of +1/+1 counters on each other creature you control equal to that creature's toughness. Hello, it's a 7/7. It doubles the power. It doubles all of your creature's size every turn. Once it lands, Ward 2 means that your opponents have to at least work a little bit to get rid of it. If you like going big, here you go, have more biggers. It's just, and then big enough. Big goes, more goes up. I mean, I'm going to play it in my +1/+1 counter deck because obviously, but it really is just win more. Floral Evoker. 2 and a green for a 2/3 snake druid with landfall. Whenever a land you control enters, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. Green, discard a creature card, return target land card from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. If you can set up shenanigans around... Oh, that's kind of gross. What is the... I can't remember the... Sorry. Brain's apparently a bit fried. I just can't remember any card names today. Handful, graveyard. Bloodguard. Right. So we need Floral Evoker, Bloodghast, and probably something like Lotus Cobra. Oh no, because this returns the battlefield not to hand. We need to discard. Ooh, Emiria Shepherd works, though. Right. So, as long as we're not returning planes, we go pay a green, discard. So, Floral Evoker and Emiria Shepherd and Lotus Cobra on the battlefield. Lotus Cobra is when a land enters, you add a mana to your mana pool. You discard a creature from your hand. You return a land from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. The land enters, triggers Emiria Shepherd, which lets you return that card, the creature you just discarded, from your graveyard to your hand, and triggers Lotus Cobra, adding you a green, so you can rediscard it, and you can just empty every land in your graveyard. Is that actually powerful? I don't know. It's just the sort of shenanigans my brain comes up with. I don't know. If you really like getting lands in your graveyard and then back out of your graveyard and then into your graveyard and then back out of your graveyard, this will help you set up your combo lines, probably. Rampart Architect. 3 and a green for an Elephant Advisor, who is a 3/4. Whenever this creature enters or attacks, create a 1/3 white wall creature token with Defender. Whenever a creature you control with Defender dies, you may search your library for a basic land card, put that card onto the battlefield tap, then shuffle. So, he builds walls, and if someone destroys his walls, then he gets new land. Very much a card that only goes in the Defender deck. Well, is that true? That's not even necessarily true. Like, he produces his own Defenders to help you. So, the biggest question is, how reliably can you attack with a 3/4, and what can you do to make sure that your Defenders that you're making are dying? If you can reliably get rid of your Defender tokens... Yes, I was planning to just get through the Commander today and pick up on Monday for the main set. It's getting kind of exhausting. But it's fine. pushing through, we're making progress, we're getting content. I don't know. Where was I? Grade 1 through white. So, if you can reliably get rid of the walls to ramp, or you're being the target of aggression, there's lots of interesting and weird things with this card. The biggest hurdle I can see is that it's a 4-mana 3/4 that really wants to be able to attack. If you can reliably set that up, this card is strong. If you cannot reliably set up attacks with it, then you have a problem. As far as this card's playability. Steward of the Harvest. 3 and a green. Human Druid. It's a 3/3. When this creature enters, exile up to 3 target land cards from your graveyard. Creatures you control have all activated abilities of all land cards exiled with this creature. I exile Evolving Wilds, Strip Mine, and Nykthos Shrine to Nyx. All of my creatures can either fetch me a basic, destroy someone else's, or make a huge amount of mana. Let's go. And that's not almost certainly not the most degenerate thing that can be done with it. That's just the first place my brain went. Someone somewhere has looked at all of the activated abilities of lands and worked out some truly degenerate combos. Wait, I'm already... What? There's a land that untapped. Untap. Elf. Come on, search engine. Right. So, Wirewood Lodge. Green tap, untap target elf. If you have an elf on the battlefield, then you... That... Oh, not quite. There's something there. There's definitely something there. But my brain is slightly too fried right now. Let me just check. No, we've still got multicolored. Okay. Come on. Drink more. Push through. We'll get this done. Will of the Sultai. 4 and a green for a sorcery. Choose one. If you control a commander as you cast a spell, you may choose both instead. Target player mills 3 cards, return all land cards from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. Put X+1/+1 counters on target creature where X is the number of lands you control. It gains trample until end of turn. So, mill, probably yourself, 3, return all your lands, and then pump something and get 1 good smashing trample. Seems fine. Like, 5 mana to return all your lands is slightly overcosted compared to other times we've seen the effect, but the other text stapled onto it probably makes it worthwhile. I don't know. We have quite a lot of get land out of graveyard effects now. Whether this one is good enough to make the cut will depend a lot on your exact build of that deck. Multicolor. Colossal Grave Reaver. Hello, how I long to have you in my possession. See previous comments about Merrin. Colossal Grave Reaver is a 6 black-green for a 7/6 dragon with flying. Whenever this creature enters or attacks, mill 3 cards. Whenever 1 or more creature cards are put into your graveyard from your library, put 1 of them onto the battlefield. Okay. So, if you cannot counter this spell, it is almost certainly going to bring itself and a friend when it enters, and then if you cannot kill it before it gets to attack, it's bringing... not even before it can attack, before that player can do anything else to fill their graveyard. This card is extremely kill-on-sightable. There is terrifying amounts of... Gorehound? Right. So, Snarling Gorehound is whenever another creature with power 2 or less enters the battlefield under your control, surveil 1. Like Colossal Grave Reaver, I bring back Snarling Gorehound. No, I have not Godhound already. I bring back a 2-power creature. That's me Surveil. I put the top card of my library into my graveyard. If that's a creature, I bring it back. If that had power 2 or less, then I repeat. There are so many dumb interactions with Colossal Grave Reaver, it isn't even funny. Just, if this is on the battlefield, the game is going to end very soon unless you kill it or the player controlling it. And that's why I'm really excited to put it into my deck. Okay. There was only the one. Right. These then are all just reprints. Let's try and get past the reprints and work out how far we need to go to get to actual set. People schemes, reprints, Hellkite 4. Okay. No. Wait. I don't remember Hellkite 4, but it looks like it should be a reprint. Huh? It was in Commander Legends. I just missed this card entirely, apparently. Never mind. Onwards. Should be nearly there. Should be nearly there. Lands. Okay. Now we're actually back into the main set. Let's just get down to that Ugin. Okay. And we will leave it at Ugin and pick this up on Monday for however much we have left of this. Whatever. Just go until we go. That's fine. Okay. Let's... What am I doing? Distance. 354. 355 and time 138, 135. 835, distance 355. Right. That'll do for today. See you Monday to finish off this review.